And we're live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is our regular Wednesday live stream. I've got Brian White from Futuraza. We've got Nick Gibbs from Investing Against the Grain. And this week is a big one. The next 90 days are going to be very important for Tesla. It's either going to be very good or it's going to be very bad. But it sure seems like that these events that are coming up are important for us. We're going to go through which of these events are the most important. Let's start with that question. What do you think, Brian? What are the biggest events that are happening and which one is the most important?
Well, we know what the big events are. It's the earnings, it's the investor day on the 13th of June, and then it's the 8/8 cyber event, the cyber cab event. Right now, I think the investor vote is the biggest thing that there is. I think, and that's something I do want to talk about in the show is what are we thinking? Which direction could the stock move if the vote goes no and Elon stays, if the vote goes no and Elon leaves, if the vote goes yes, it is which of those has, the biggest impact. I mean, obviously we have some thoughts, but I would say that the shareholder vote is by far the biggest thing. And on that day, on the 13th, we'll also get to see a bit of a renewed vision of where we're going, because we've seen them pull back on some aspects of the business. And it's important to know which areas they're moving forward on and what the progress is on those fronts.
Okay, Nick, do you agree?
Yeah, I think really for me the biggest one's just the shareholder vote. After that, well, maybe delivery numbers from a stock perspective or stock moving perspective. But no, I think the vote is the most imperative thing right now. And then from there, I think it's pretty smooth sailing, to be frank. Yeah, leave it at that.
I disagree with you guys just for fun. Let's talk about this because obviously it makes sense, right? It makes everybody's probably going to say, no, it's the vote that matters. But the angle that I'm going to take is that the annual shareholder vote is important, but it's not going to be settled one way or the other. If both proposals were approved, it doesn't mean that we're clear sailing. If both come back as negative, it doesn't mean that it's over. So this is going to be an overhang. It's going to be sitting there, but clearly it's going to have an impact to the company, to the stock. These things will happen. It's just that it's not the end all be all. Versus August 8th, the Robotaxi event. I don't know why Brian's calling it the Cybercab event. Did you hear that title?
No,
Brian, or is that
no? It's jet lag. Blame it on the jet lag. 25 hours door to door yesterday and 6 hours of sleep. So I get some slack for that.
They might call it the Cybercab event. But if that comes out and they shock the world, that it's actually sooner than we realize, that it's much more complete than we realize, then even if Elon leaves the company, worst case scenario, even if that happens, the company's not dead. The company's not going to, it's still going to be able to deliver on Robotaxi. I guess I'm a little biased because my mind is always in the business and the products. That if you have great products that is successful in the market, that it's going to overcome anything. Now, having said that, I realize that Elon is not, that's not a simple thing as saying, hey, you can overcome Elon. But at the end of the day, we all knew that this company that we've invested in had the Keyman risk. This Keyman risk, whether it came in the form of an annual shareholder meeting that votes against him getting what he needs in terms of compensation, it could have happened in, like a number of other ways as well. It could have happened at any moment in time. So, it's just something that has always been there. But these leaps forward in technology is the big thing. So what do you guys think about that? That the Robotaxi event is, for me, it's critical. It's the big one that's going to change the trajectory of this company one way or the other.
So I, like you, I am all about the execution and less about the stock moves. I think it's important to have Nick joining us because he's very good with understanding stock and things like that. Why are you laughing? No, but because I look at execution, to me, that's all that matters. And if the sentiment is negative or sour today, doesn't matter. At some point, the fundamentals overcome any of that. And conversely, when you've got a hype stock where there's all hype and no product, eventually that comes back too. If there's no execution to follow it up, it's not going to matter. So you're right that the shareholder vote is important. It is a big overhang, I think, but in which direction? And I mean, obviously, downward is my obvious fear, but there's got to be a lot of on 8-8, or as the Europeans say 8-8 because they do it the other way. There's going to be a lot of new direction we're going to see. I've been in Europe, so I have to think like them. We're going to see some new direction, some new something. We're going to see something crazy, is my prediction. We're going to see something that if somebody has it today on their phone and wishes to leak it, it's too crazy for them to leak because they think that there's no way this is real. Just like with the Cybertruck, there were people who photographed it, who got to see it, who got to touch it, who wouldn't dare say a word because they're messing with me, right? This can't be real. So yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Okay. Before we get there, just wanted to shout out to David F., Real Futurist. This is where I got this idea for this topic today. He said the next 10 weeks are going to be wild for Tesla, the annual shareholder meeting, and Elon's comp plan revote. That's June 13th. We got the second quarter production delivery report. That'll be July 2nd. Then you got the earnings report, July 24th. That's the other thing we need to talk about. Then you have 8-8, the Robotaxi reveal. And then, of course, there's the China delivery numbers, there's the Fed meetings, interest rates, what's going to happen, and so forth. What do you think, Nick? What do you think about this list?
So, yeah, well, I would say it's a pretty accurate list. But I want to go back to what you were saying, Herbert, because I think you are underplaying the importance of this vote. I know you said it's not the end all be all. I would debate you that it could be the end all be all. And the reason I say that is, should Elon, let's play it out. This goes two ways. Either one way, Elon gets his comp back, gets reinstated. And from there, I would say it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what the judge does. It doesn't matter if it doesn't get a successful appeal, because in my opinion, the shareholders didn't screw over Elon. It was judge and politics. However, should the shareholders not reinstate Elon's compensation package, that's a whole different ballgame. Yes, you can talk about we've always had a Keyman risk, but that Keyman risk has always been way below. It hasn't really been a worry. Now the temperature is rising and we're starting to get more and more concerned about it. And the reason to me it's a big deal is, I don't know if you guys ever watched the movie Braveheart. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, but it's no different to me than the scene where the soon-to-be King of Scotland betrays William Wallace, and right after they embrace each other for an alliance, William Wallace is walking out, and all of a sudden here comes the British, and they attack William Wallace and take him to jail, and the rest, freedom. It was the rest of the movie there. To me, that would be us doing that to him. We're betraying him. We had a commitment, we had a pact. We were in this together through the highs and lows. And now, after everything, when we're on the brink of a lot of greatness, and sure, we've gone through a lot of troublesome, we just give up and we just fold on him. And I think the repercussions of that would be immense. You would probably see SpaceX pull away from Tesla. I mean, like playing out worst case scenario. Elon checks out, Elon leaves, XAI, SpaceX, none of that benefits Tesla anymore. And Tesla becomes another Me Too company. Like, I think the way this could pan out could be really bad. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think that could be the end all be all. Now, again, if we vote and we agree and he still doesn't get his compensation package, it wasn't us that betrayed him. It was judge, it was politics. So I don't think you can understate that.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. I'm not going to understate it. You're correct. This is important. I get your point. That is critical. So important. I guess my point was simply that is the event that occurs on June 13th, does that mean that that next day, that the next 90 days, we're going to see things happen? Or is it going to just, right? It will play it out over the next 6 months to a year, is what I was just trying to make that point clear. But you're right. It's important. But, this point about it's a shareholders are making a statement. It's a betrayal. We heard today, CalPERS, right? The CalPERS CEO came out and said, we're going to vote against these proposals when they voted for it. But this is, it's institutions. It's not the retail investors. So does he, is he going to make a decision that, oh my gosh, the voter, the shareholders don't support me anymore, when it's very likely that this is political? CalPERS was told by the Biden administration, things like that could have been in play. So
it's definitely political.
Yeah,
they voted for originally.
Right.
Now they're voting against. What changed?
I'd say what changed is they already got their end of the deal. Why pay for it? I don't necessarily think, I don't see what benefit this would have for someone politically. I think it's just about, we already got it. Why pay? It's crazy to me.
You really
the
don't
idea
see the political benefit? You really don't see that angle?
for sure. It's union. Yeah.
I don't see how that would benefit them. I don't see how that would make them stronger.
So weaker you make your biggest adversary, who has the biggest voice and arguably more power than even the president of the United States, who is saying a lot of things that are in contestation, in contest with what you're saying. That benefits you.
Right. Does it? Because all I think it will do is make Elon stronger and hungrier and more aggressive and more powerful in the end. It's like breaking up Ma Bell was, this huge blow to that business, except that all of the businesses that it became, most of them became bigger than Ma Bell ever was. This is something that no matter how it goes, Elon will come out stronger. He is not someone to underestimate. And I just think that making Elon suffer a little bit will not help General Motors or Ford or any of the union companies get to where they want to be. I think it'll just be, a bump in the road. And I'm not convinced that Delaware would uphold this on appeal, because the precedent it would set would be, would have rippling effects on the industry that would be devastating for a lot of big companies.
Well, to be fair, Brian, you should have said that before the judge made this decision, and everybody's shocked that she even did that, right? So it is happening.
Having a terrible judge in one place is a thing that happens in all kinds of places. You can't always predict it, and it's pretty clear from my reading of the ruling that she has a bone to pick, but that doesn't mean that it goes beyond her. It would be a weird conspiracy to create. And it's more likely that she is just has a rage floppy for all things Elon, and that's just not a great position to be in.
But there's a certain point where we're just ignoring evidence in front of our face. Again, I'm not trying to get into politics or anything like this, and I, just to be transparent, I've pretty much always only voted Democratic, so I'm not like some extreme Republican or right wing or anything like this, or I'm not claiming to be left or anything like that. But you can't ignore the facts. Delaware judge who has ties straight to Biden, who it's not just she had a bone to pick with Elon. Like you can see it. Like, are these all coincidences? Like there's a certain point where it's not all coincidences. And the whole we need to investigate Elon. Where are these calls for any other billionaire, any other person, every other company doing business in China? Like, where are all those? Like, again, I hate to say it. I wish that this wasn't true. We shouldn't be having this conversation. We just shouldn't. We should be doubling down, tripling down on the greatest innovator of our life, the great innovation in our country. And that's what we should be leading with. Politics should not even be the discussion. Politics should be just the furthest thing. We should be about what is right, what's wrong, what's technologically forward. But unfortunately, you can see that it's been injected into this. And I find it very hard to just avoid and not see it.
Yeah, that's why it's so interesting that the juxtaposition of these two major events that are happening. June 13th, there's the vote and annual shareholder meeting. And then you've got August 8th, the Robotaxi release. It says, one is hampering technology development. What's happening? Why are you not promoting Elon Musk, who is the greatest contributor, one of the greatest, if not one of the greatest in economy to the US? And everyone in the world is supporting him and courting him. Meanwhile, the US isn't. And then you've got August 8th, an example, a show of how Tesla is going to just completely revolutionize a whole new industry that's going to be so valuable to the country, to this country. The economy will skyrocket when you have things like autonomous cars and robots. But the two of them are right beside each other within less than 2 months apart from each other. And so that's why the question is: is this not the whole topic of the show, right? There's really high stakes in the next 90 days. Really high stakes. It can go either way. So I didn't want to, Nick. I wasn't trying to downplay it. That's why I came up with the show. These are very important events that are going to happen. The first question is, which is the more important event? You're correct. It is going to be the annual shareholder meeting. I'm just hopeful that there are plan Bs and Cs, that this isn't as soon as this happens, if a negative event occurs on June 13th, that Elon's going to quit on June 14th. And the company's going to go down in the next month or two, or regardless if he leaves, let's say that does happen, Robotaxi could save the day in the sense that this company, it's already out the bag. It's already happened. It's going to happen regardless if he's here or not. Even he said so in the earnings call. I've had this discussion with Larry Goldberg, and he was thinking that even Robotaxi may not happen if a negative event occurs on August 8th, on June 13th. And I just can't see that happening. What do you guys think?
I think that Tesla owns all these patents, and that if Elon were to try and take them somewhere else, he would have to buy them. That new company would have to purchase them. Maybe they would spin off that company, so you and I would all become shareholders in it, and then Elon would dedicate his time there instead. Those are all possibilities. I wanted to clarify that I didn't think either of you were necessarily being political. I clearly do not engage in politics to a degree that would give me the most informed opinion about it. But it's clear that Elon inserts himself in politics, so it's understandable that there would be political pushback from various factors. And so I think that no matter what happens, I don't think he's ready to leave Tesla. And even if the vote doesn't go his way, then the verdict will be appealed. And then I believe that would go the way he wants it to go. And if it doesn't, there's always the next compensation plan. But I think it's desperately unfair to have people who bought the shares at their all-time high voting on whether or not he should bring it from $13 to $200. I think it's desperately unfair, and a lot of people who have had a negative experience over the last year or two with the stock are going to not necessarily behave in the way I would want them to.
So let me just touch on that last point. I actually think that this compensation is going to get passed overwhelmingly. In fact, I think it's going to be higher than last time. I think there's an impetus for people to vote yes, and it's the Keyman factor. Okay, do I think if it gets voted down? Let me finish that thought. Meaning, if it goes negative, what does that do to my current investment? If I'm upset that it's down from all-time highs, what do I think is going to happen when Elon's gone, or if he even thinks about leaving? Then what? Like I would literally have to be wanting to just burn my money in thin air. Okay. Whereas all these other people who are signaling they're going to vote no, it's because they're upset about something. They've got a political grind to act, or just a comment that Elon said that they don't like, right? And really they're doing it for show and for clicks. But with that said, I think that people have a reason to vote in favor of it, because nobody wants to just burn their money, right? At least no hardworking person who, works hard for the money to invest for a certain outcome. And I think we all still see the future. I am actually a little bit in Larry's camp with FSD. Um,
Okay. Explain
look,
that.
you're right. Elon's not going to walk away with patents. In fact, at Tesla,
No.
patents are really pointless. Um, we know that the team that he has been able to assemble is not because people just want to work at Tesla. That's not how a Musk company works. They go there because they want to work for Elon. They want to be part of that. Maybe they don't want to be there forever, but they want to just have some time in that experience because that's a life experience to be that close to someone like that who's able to do and move that quickly. If he's not there anymore, I guarantee you those people are going to start looking elsewhere. And that means that they're not going to be focused on what they're currently doing. I'm not saying everybody would leave, but I'm telling you the top talent would be gone because the top talent wants to be where Elon's at. The top talent wants to be where Ilya's at. The top talent wants to be where the people who are moving and shaking are going. Now, the reason that's a big deal is because even if you have all the patents, even if you know exactly how everything works, without someone like Elon, you don't get the scale. You don't have, as Andre Karpathy said with Lex Friedman, you don't have somebody who's wielding a sledgehammer to force forward. You don't have somebody who has the relationships to break into other economies, other countries, other regions when it comes to Robotaxi. You don't have someone that's going to push the envelope and force tougher deadlines. Somebody who, if you say something's impossible, is going to tell you, I don't care, get it done. And you're going to somehow figure it out. And you're going to be like, at the end of it, you're going to be like, oh my God, I did do this. This is amazing, right? Farzad talks about it all the time with his experience. So Elon not being there right now, in arguably, to my opinion, the most critical time, right when they're on the precipice of such a major breakthrough, I think is existential for them, for Tesla, for us.
Okay.
So I would add to that real quick that when Steve Jobs knew that his departure from Apple was imminent and he put a roadmap in place and they were able to execute on it. But in terms of new vision, you're right. The new vision has been extremely limited and lacking in ambition and success. The people who go to work for Elon know that they're going to have great opportunities and a fantastic resume piece that will open any door they want in the future. And you could argue that no, they want to work for Tesla or they just want to work for SpaceX. But then why are those two companies the top two for STEM graduates looking for jobs? It's what is the common factor? Obviously, it's the key man. And if he were to leave, and I think the odds are extremely low, if he were to leave Tesla, I think Tesla would continue with the current roadmap and do quite well, but the roadmap would cease to evolve the way I think the three of us expect it to under his leadership, and that any company he goes to would become the new magnet for top talent.
Agreed.
Well,
And Herbert, just one last point. Sorry. Um, great points about Apple, and you can even extend it to Amazon. Bezos was able to select Jassy, who created AWS. Um, Jobs was able to select Tim Cook, right, and kind of plan that out. Elon would probably just fade into the background. He wouldn't quit. He'd probably silent quit, right? Quiet quit. What all the kids do these days. He'd probably do that because, well, he doesn't want to lose value in his own shares because that's also his net worth, and he's got loans against that, so he's got to protect that. But he'd probably just be a little more quiet, be a little more hands off, do things in the background. You probably wouldn't see much of him, and we'd be back to where people were complaining again, like last year. But the other thing I was going to say is actually I forgot what I was going to say. Back to you, Herbert.
okay. Let me respond to this. I mean, it's really, really hard to try to counter fear, to counter people. I'm not saying you are, you're just laying out the worst case scenario. It's really hard because it's like that's what we're set up to do. Is, don't you know this could happen? But with Elon, let's say he does leave on June 14th. If he had left a year ago, you're absolutely correct. Robotaxi won't happen. If he left on June 14th, are you telling me that 8.8 won't occur anymore? Possibly. There's a possibility. I get that. That all of a sudden we're not going to get Robotaxi anymore. That's just not going to happen anymore, despite the progress that's happened. He's already today making all of these major moves in the company today. If he knew that he wasn't going to get his compensation approved, which he would know, they know now, they have much more visibility than we do. You would stop. You already start seeing Elon today, quiet quitting. You wouldn't see him tweeting every single day. Literally every other day, there's a tweet about Robotaxi, about FSD, about the Tesla. He's now really focused as a wartime CEO. He's hiring people. He's firing people. He's completely reshaping the company. He's been doing this already. And so these things are in path. Now, you're right. He leaves on June 14th. A lot of this could fall. I'm not dumb enough to think that this is like done deal. We're not there. But it's also a little bit extreme to say that he leaves on June 14th, all of this goes away, right? The executives of the company goes, oh, you know what? We're not going to do Robotaxi anymore. Despite all this progress, everybody left. They're all going to follow him. And now we're not going to have full self-driving anymore. We have 140,000 people that work for Tesla, and, people will leave. They'll follow him, but there's people that will stay, and they'll keep this going forward. Yes, the worst case scenario can and has happened in the past. So this can certainly happen. I'm just trying to put a little balance here to say that that's a worst case scenario.
I don't think it's a worst case scenario. Yes, they have 140,000 employees. 100 of them, maybe less, are part of the FSD team. You don't think 100 people would leave? Find something else?
Yes, they will. And it could be the most important people, right? It's only the 100 that really matter that could leave, and that can happen. It can happen. Yes, it can happen. I'm not saying it can't. I'm just putting balance, because
I appreciate the balance.
A month and a half away, and that is when they're going to do the Robotaxi reveal. That's when they've already is the design of the car already pretty well complete, or are we just still at the beginning? We're closer to completion than we are at the beginning. That's what they're going to reveal. Are they no longer going to reveal it? Are they no longer going to produce it because he leaves? He is a force, and he is what's making this happen. If it wasn't for him, most companies would not have announced 8.8. They would not have said, okay, we're going to pick this date and we're going to go, full force to make this happen on 8.8. It would not have happened. It would have taken years. They may not even bother trying to get this. This is such a Herculean effort. I agree with all that. But my point is that he's already made that announcement a couple months ago. All these things are happening now. The app is probably already designed. We're already seeing this being, showcasing us what's to come. A lot of that can't be stopped at this point, right? The most crucial thing can be stopped. I'm trying to battle the whole extreme worst case scenario. It's hard. I can't defend that, because it can happen.
You're spot on with everything you're saying. The part that we can't handicap are the unknowns. Let me explain what I mean by that. Cybertruck, approving that design, only an Elon Musk would ever do that.
Absolutely.
Saying scrap all of FSD, we're starting from scratch with FSD 12, we're doing a whole end-to-end rewrite. Nobody else could do that but him. Probably saying, okay, stop the design for the Model 2 next-gen vehicle and instead make it on the 3Y lines. That's an Elon Musk move. 8.8, to your point. My point is to finish FSD, to go scale with Robotaxis. We don't know how many of those decisions are needed that are such ballsy calls that without Elon, they don't happen. And so we never get to where we get to. We don't know how many of those are there on the tail end. That's
Elon himself said on earnings call, he said, if I was abducted by aliens, he said that, Robotaxi is still going to happen. And it's just, I don't know about the bot, is what he said, right?
Again, I'm not trying to fearmonger. I just go vote. Hope's not a strategy.
So Anthony wanted to know what our take is on Robotaxi utilization. More importantly, if Robotaxi is going to be displacing Uber and Lyft and how that would work. I'm of the opinion that Robotaxi, that Tesla can't roll it out by themselves. That if they were to try and roll it out coast to coast or internationally all at once, they would not have the ability to build the the depots, the service depots, fast enough to staff them fast enough to keep up with production, and that they could likely produce more vehicles at a pace than they could afford to keep 100% of in-house. So my thought on this has always been that they would allow others, Uber, Lyft, you, me, to own robotaxis and put them in our fleets, put them in Uber and Lyft's fleets, do whichever one we want to do, and leave them some breathing room. But what do you guys think?
He has repeated several times that he's going to need shepherds. These are the fleet managers who's going to take care of the cars. I don't know if they're going to partner with Uber. I know I've had this debate with so many people. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other. I don't know if they need them. What they need is a company like, oddly enough, the gas stations. Those are the partners that they need, who's going to clean the car, manage the car like a fleet manager would. It would be like a Hertz. Those are the companies that they would partner with. Maybe Uber will change their business model and then fleet manage these cars as well. So that's more likely what's going to happen. And it's going to be city by city, but it's going to be quick and pretty broad, not this, limited in certain areas.
Yeah, I'm in Herbert's ball camp. There's definitely going to be shepherds, I guess. We will definitely be able to manage the physical side of it, meaning the cleaning, the charging, when we put it in or out, having X amount. I think Uber and Lyft are dead. They've been dead. It's over.
My question is, how on earth are they still not profitable? They're taking money. I mean, look at Uber Eats. The restaurants say they're getting a bad deal. The drivers are getting a bad deal. The customers are getting a bad deal. And you're still hemorrhaging cash. You're bleeding money from the eyes. I don't know where it's all going.
They had their first quarter of profitability just after 10 plus years. So let's go back to that, right? 8.8, Robotaxi reveal. Here's Elon making this announcement. Like you said, Nick, very bold that he came up with this. Then you see him as wartime CEO making massive reorganization of the company, changing the company into a robotics AI company. And they're revealing the app. They've got a Robotaxi design that they've been teasing. This is a crucial moment in company history. So let's forget about the annual shareholder meeting for now. Let's just talk about 8.8 for a second, right? Crucial, isn't it? Because, the company has been an automaker for its lifetime. And here we are, finally, coming up in a month and a half. Is it 2 months? June, July. Yes, 2 months and 8 days from now. And this is going to be the moment when the company comes out and announces, and I'm not saying that it's going to happen the next day. I'm not saying that we're now changed, that Robotaxi is going to be launched. But it's like, this is the milestone moment. We are a Robotaxi company. Here's how it's going to work. Here's the vehicle that's going to do it. Here's the program. Let me show you a demo of how this might work. And it's going to come. It could take a year, 2 years. It could take 3 years. But it's like this massive change to the company. We are a Robotaxi company. And the whole point about autonomy is that it will wipe out cars. Like, why would you ever buy a car that is not Robotaxi ready in the future? Or why would you even buy a car in the future anymore? And any automaker who makes a car, then he compare it to it's like as if you're, it's like, what did he say? It's like as if you're like a horse carriage. Like, why would I keep building improvements to horse carriage if you've got that leap of technology? This is a big deal, right? And then doesn't it also make Tesla like a proof that Tesla's an AI company? Because this is proof that AI, neural nets, is actually making money, like a real business model, making money in the real world. So this is a big deal, isn't it? like a really big deal. I'm not just saying, I know you guys both know it's a big deal.
I wanted to interrupt real quick and do a sound check with the audience in terms of levels. I've just turned my level down a little bit because I was getting complaints that I'm a little too hot on the mic. Would folks in the comments let us know who's too loud and who's too quiet? And I don't mean philosophically. We know the answer to that one. I mean in terms of the actual production. So with that said, please continue. I would just add on
Oh,
that
okay.
Herbert convinced me to move my microphone into frame because even though it doesn't look
Sounds
quite as
so
good,
good.
it sounds far better.
Sounds
So
great.
Yeah, and I'll apologize ahead of time that I don't have my normal setup. But with that said, we're here to have a conversation. Um, Herbert, it's funny you said that about who would buy a vehicle, who wouldn't just have an autonomous vehicle. My wife and I were driving around yesterday, 2 days ago, um, and I was asking her, I was posturing that question to her. I
Mm.
was like, "This is incredible! Like, just look at this. It's just doing everything. Like, when was the last time we even tapped on accelerator, did any? And this is the worst it's going to be. And we're not doing anything.
Mm.
Like, it's
Mm.
unreal."
Yeah.
And I was asking her, it's like, why would anyone ever own a car? And she had some good answers.
Mm.
And so her first answer was, well, you know how people like you can go onto a subway or on a bus and it's kind of a little gross because it's communal, right? Everybody uses it. That could be a reason, right? People like their own space, they like their own cleanliness. She also said sometimes you just want to keep certain things in the car that you don't want to have to lug in and out of your house or in and out of a cab every time. She said, imagine a business person who, I don't know,
Hmm.
maybe they sell tile and they're going from architecture firm to architecture firm. They want to be
Hmm.
able to leave certain samples in the car and they don't want to have to take everything with them every single time. I was giving her like some ways you could solve for that. Like maybe you rent out a Robotaxi for the entire day that goes with you and you get a better rate because of that, and that's still more cost effective than actually owning a vehicle. But I thought those are some pretty good points. If you want to leave things in there, if you need to carry certain things, if you just, you want your own clean space, you don't want to be living in someone else's, like, sure, they clean it, but just like an airplane, it's not always the cleanest in reality.
Yeah.
well,
Let
and
me
I would
let me
add to
push
that.
back
Well,
on
I would
that
just add
because
real quick. I was just going to say car seats and shopping bags.
Yeah.
Some people need to carry those.
okay. So let's play this out, Nick. Let's play this out, man.
Well, I'll go grab my
Uh,
wife. You can have it out with
yeah,
her.
yeah.
I'm in your camp. I'm in your
No, no,
camp.
no,
I'm
no.
like,
There's no debate. She's correct. Those are demands and needs that people will have. But let's play this out. Let's say that you have autonomous cars come out. Uh, would they still sell the car for $50,000? Forget Tesla. Any automaker that has an autonomous car, would they sell the car to you 50,000? Probably not. Would they sell it to you for 250,000? Okay. Would you now buy it for 250,000? Maybe not. See? But what you might do is maybe rent the car, like you said. Okay, I have full ownership of this car. I need it from, these hours of the day. I want it for 8 hours a day for every day for the rest of this year. Guaranteed, that's my car. And then the
well,
other moments I don't need that car for work. Maybe that's how you do it. But does it? But yes, you can still buy a car, but you'll need to pay $250,000 for
why?
this because if you don't pay for it, let's say you first of all, no car company will sell it for 50 because it's now worth more than that. And B, if you don't pay for it, another company will go, well, I'll pay you 250 for it because I'll put that car into my Robotaxi network, even though you don't intend to do it. Now you're going to let go of 250. So it's just not going to happen. It's not that it's not going to happen. It's like what Elon himself has said. What's going to happen is car ownership is going to become like the people who owns horses. It's no longer going to be everyone anymore, but it's going to be just
Disagree.
people still have some horses
Car
because they want to own a horse.
car ownership will be like people who own a jet.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. If you want to pay 250, you can own the car. But if not, you're going to just probably, ride share, own a
I don't
jet.
think it's going to be. I don't think the price, the cost disparity is going to be that great. I think Tesla may have the advantage of being the first to market with a robotaxi, but within 10 years, it'll be the sort of thing that you'll have to compete on price. And I do think that there's a lot of people who grew up driving cars and enjoying driving cars, and I don't see that going away within 20 years. I think it's quite different, where horses are uncomfortable and kind of painful at times and a whole lot more work than just having a car sitting around. And I think especially in the early days when they're trying to finance their own robotaxi network, they could easily burn through far more than 20 billion building and keeping these, and they would have to wait for the revenue to catch up. So I think even if they decide, you know what, we're not building any new full meat driven machines, we're going to just, I think that the 3SXY Cybertruck and perhaps one more or two more would continue into production with some incremental improvements over time, that those would still be made because there's still profit
Yeah,
there.
it's not going to be a transfer. It's not going to be a flip over overnight. It's going to be years before this happens. But Elon himself has said this is going to be the largest asset increase ever in history. So all of our cars that are Teslas that are Robotaxi ready, the price of that is going to jump because the value of the cars increased significantly, like 5 times more is the number he's been throwing out, right? So I guess my point is that 8.8 is the moment when they're going to come out and talk about Robotaxi, which is almost equivalent to when the first combustion car came out and everybody was, riding horse carriages, and that was what everybody's doing. Now all of a sudden there's this new technology that's going to take over the world, and it's going to be the thing. And here we are, going to witness this in a month and a half, in 2 months from now. This is how big this is. Again, it's just an event. I'm not expecting things are going to change overnight, but this is what it represents.
So when you say it's big, big for what? For
Mhm.
the for TSLA? Is it big for the perception of Tesla?
Yeah.
Obviously,
So
I'm being
yeah,
tongue in cheek here, but I'm just curious what
yeah,
exactly you think it'll be big for.
yeah. I titled this show to be Tesla, not that the stock. Tesla's high stakes next 90 days, which is this is critical for the company. Obviously, we talked about at the beginning of the show, annual shareholder meeting. Elon is Tesla. Elon is the most important thing for the company and the future of the company. Agreed. But the next big thing is Robotaxi for the company because it's going to change the company from a car company into an autonomous company, AI robotics company. These are robots on wheels. This is AI. This is like you saw Elon changing the company, like the structure. He's firing whole divisions. He's changing who's hired, who's executives, and all that. And so it is very much. I look at it from the company perspective, and then the stock will follow. That's it's just
So
if you show revenue, show margins on Robotaxi subscription, just like what it took years for Apple to convince the world that they're not just a hardware company, but they're actually a software subscription company. Now they're reaping that benefit because they finally prove, but it took them so many years to finally tell people, hey, watch what's going to happen. Nobody believed them until it happened.
I guess let me ask that question a different way. Who do you think will finally, do you think like Wall Street, do you think investors, hedge fund, like who do you think finally, like 8.8 is a seminal moment for who to understand? We already know it.
Yeah.
Us,
Yep.
Tesla, but like we don't need 8.8 to understand what we are, what it is. So like where do you, like, I'll give you what I think, but I'm just really curious, like, is there a specific outcome do you think 8.8 will change the narrative?
Yeah, so I've asked this question to everybody I interview, and you get the same typical answers, which is institutional analysts will wait until the revenue is happening. An actual program, an actual revenue, business model, you can actually see it happening. And then maybe at that point, they'll slowly scale it and show, well, if they hit this much this year and this year, but very conservative until they're actually shown. But it's for people like me, people like you, who see that this is an actual business model change in one of the largest companies in the world. And if this works, and it's looking like it's going to be global because China's going to do it as well. It looks like the governments are courting this to happen, and so, which is opposite of what everybody thought, right? Everybody thought that regulation would be the hamper, and they'll go, no, they'll have to drag this out. But in fact, they're being chased to be the first to be put in to be done. So I think it's me. I'm going to look at it going, this is a big deal. I'm going to notice it, and I'm going to go, I'm happy that this is happening for this company, and then eventually the others will follow as it happens.
So
I don't know if I answered the question, but that's
I would say there's a step before that, and that's if we see enough revenue coming in from subscriptions, if enough people have said, I had my demo and I love it, I'm buying autonomy. So that's not necessarily Robotaxi, but it's a step down that path. If we see a bunch of new revenue showing up on a recurring basis, Wall Street loves recurring revenue. It's great. And it's just as close to free money as you can get for a product you've already built, designed, and sold. And this program is moving forward with or without it. So it's as close to free money as you're getting. We could see on the next earnings report the beginning of that, a big first step of people who have signed up and started paying for it. And I think that would be the first glimpse we would finally see analysts other than ARK Invest giving it some credibility.
Okay, so yeah, so I do think you both answered the question from your points of view. I don't believe this narrative that you have to see the revenue before the stock starts to appreciate what's happening. I know a lot of people say that. I don't think any example in history pans that out. Not even Apple. I think you tend to see these companies get valued ahead of time, at least somewhat.
Mhm.
If we get out of 8.8 and we have a projected timeline for when you will be able to hail a Robotaxi, not financial advice, I think you will start to see that get priced into the stock. I think that's why 8.8 is such a big deal. More importantly, from the stock perspective, again, I think to Brian's point, they are going to show us more than just the Robotaxi. They're going to show us some of these other models that they're going to be building. And that's all Wall Street really cares about. What's the next vehicle you're doing? And that alone will allow it to value into the stock. So to your point, I think 8.8 is a big deal for the stock. I don't think it's a big deal for us investors. It's just more of an exciting day for us that we finally get to see what we already think we kind of know what it looks like. And hopefully, and it will probably be a wake-up call to many institutional investors. Some will get it. Just like us, we are early on as investors. We see it ahead of time. We've had an edge. There are definitely institutional investors that are the same way, like an ARK Invest. I think you'll see another volume of those type of investors like, okay, something's happening here. All right, Tesla's clearly got this, and they'll come in. People like Gary Black, they need to see revenue. I don't think that's the status quo for Wall Street.
I hope you're right, Nick, but it's never been the way it's been. I would say never, but it's almost always never. Every time there's a product reveal, a business model thing, the stock doesn't move. In fact, falls the next day. People like us get excited, the opposite of what you just said. I
So mark
hope you're
today's
right
down.
this time.
May 29th, Nick
Yeah.
said that
Yeah.
Tesla stock will
You were
react.
right. You were right when the earnings call happened. Last earnings call, you were the only one of a panel of 8 that thought that the stock would go up, and you were correct. So I this might be correct this time around, but I'm just saying that the history has said it's rarely has happened where a product reveal day, the stock jumps because everybody realizes this is a new kind of company. So let's talk about that, right? We spent some time talking about the annual shareholder meeting. You were very negative. Just to be clear, you're saying it's a possibility.
I'm cautious. I'm very cautious.
Being cautious about it, and you're saying that it's a very big deal for the company if this happens. Agreed. And then there is 8.8. What happens? So I think I think you might have answered it already, right? Which is that if it's a negative for 8.8 or for the June 13th vote, that even if the Robotaxi reveal happens on 8.8, it won't matter anymore because all these, it could fall apart easily. That's the way people will look at it. Or is it that if 8.8 comes out and it's like fantastic, and despite a bad review, a bad situation on June 13th, that the stock will still go up and people will still, they'll realize the future may not be the same, but the world has changed for Tesla regardless.
Nick's opinion, Nick's silly opinions that nobody should really listen to, just take it as entertainment. I think the only way we have a downvote on Elon's compensation and still have an update after 8.8 is if after Elon's compensation gets turned down, if Elon comes out and says, for the retail stock investors, I am not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to fight for you, whatever. I'm going to do right by
Mhm.
you. If he says something like
Mhm.
that to show his commitment to Tesla, then I think everything would be okay. Short of something like that, if it gets it down, the Texas thing, I'm neither here nor there about it. Like, if the board wants it, so I want it because I think the board knows better than I do. And I have no problems admitting when I don't know something. But the Elon conversation I see is existential. So short of him giving us a recommitment and telling us that things are good and that he's good, more importantly, uh, yeah, no, I think it would be an overhang on 8.8. Oh God, I sound like Gary. Sorry,
No,
overhang,
good answer.
Twitter
Overhang.
overhang.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, so other than these two events in the next 90 days, is there anything else? It's like, do you guys think that July 24th, when the earnings call happened, is this going to be important for the company, or is this one of those things that are just already, expected and we're moving on? Q2 earnings call coming July 24th.
I don't know what to expect yet. I am cautiously optimistic that we will see some revenue, more than a 2% take rate. That report that we saw that said only 2% of people who got the free trial ended up buying it. I looked at the way they tabulated that and it's nonsense. It doesn't capture people who got the free trial. They don't know who got the free trial. They can just measure people who once paid to purchase a trial and then did not buy it again. That's not good data. But I think we're going to see something there. I think it's going to be interesting. I would say on product demos, the only consistent, apart from the Model Y release, is that it was not always what we expected, and it was always more exciting. But with that said, it didn't. None of these events moved the stock. Battery Day didn't move the stock. AI Day, Autonomy Day, none of them moved the stock. And there are a lot of people who say, "Oh, it's just Elon pumping the stock." Guys, you have to actually see the stock move for it to be a pump. That's how that works. I hate to break it to you. So there's going to be a lot of things to see. But Nick, what are you thinking on earnings day?
Again, I think here's the problem with not voting yes for Elon's comp is that now it's like we play this game of Christmas tree on what happens.
Mm.
Let's say he doesn't get the approval for his vote. Well, then on that earnings call, guess what? Everybody wanted him to not join the calls. What if he doesn't join the call? Everyone's going to freak out he didn't join the call. Everyone's going to freak out. What does
Jesus,
this
Nick.
mean? Well, I'm just saying this is what
Yeah.
happens, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
what
You're not
happens.
wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong. I have
So I
another
don't know.
question on the vote, which is we've talked about the compensation a lot. We haven't talked about the move to Texas a lot. Do you think that Elon and Tesla have made a sufficiently strong case for voters to vote for that? I think the case for back pay is pretty straightforward, pretty easy at least to understand. Whether or not you agree with either side is a different matter. But the move to Texas, I think most retail investors don't have a strong understanding on what it would mean functionally, practically. And I think a lot of institutional investors are just comfortable with what they already know. I don't have they made a strong enough case for that?
I don't think they're going to win that. But experts I've talked to said actually that Nick is actually the most important proposal, more important than 2018. And the reason is that if they can move it to Texas, then the next comp plan that they create won't be hampered by this potential for the judge to say something like this, to do it again. And so that's critical, but they're not going to be able to. It's going to be so hard. Even Robin Denholm was interviewed by Financial Times, and she said this is like the Mount Everest because unfortunately, people who don't vote is counted as a no for that particular proposal, that specific proposal. So they don't just need 50% of the people who vote; they need 50% of people, including the ones who don't vote. And so it's much harder to win that one. But it's apparently very important. In fact, the experts I spoke to said that if you got the pass on the Texas, but a negative on the 2018 re-ratification comp plan, that that's actually okay, that would work out?
Yeah, again, go vote. Vote your shares. You have them for a reason. You have the ability to vote. Go vote. I I hate to say this in case people get comfortable with me saying this
Mhm.
and get complacent, but I think all of the advertising, all the marketing that's happening, it's not for Elon's comp. It's for to get enough
It
of a
is.
quorum of people
Right.
voting so that they can, because again, even if they get over 50% that say yes, but we didn't get enough people to have a quorum for the vote, to your point, then it fails. So I think they don't have enough of a quorum yet of people voting. And I think that's the fear. There we go. I love that. Let's
Ah,
go.
where'd you get that,
Vote your
Brian?
share.
Can't hear you. You're on mute.
We Tesla Fix and I made these. If you want to go
Oh,
full screen
yes.
so people can actually see them, these are we were giving these out at the Austria event. We've got vote your shares and vote yes on Prop 3 and 4, and we were giving these out to anybody who would take them because it's an important one. And then of course, just because you may have realized I enjoy a good joke. The question is, how can Elon divide his time between so many companies? And the answer is 3 Elon Musks. So he has that power.
That's brilliant.
I always give these out. Find me in public. I do this. This is what I do. It is your punishment for recognizing me. You have to take some merch.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love that, Brian.
Okay. Back to the original question. Is this the most consequential 90 days that's coming for Tesla that's ever happened before?
Probably not.
What? Nick, you just spent the first 30 minutes saying it is. Tell me why.
It's the most important 90 days right now, today. Um, but no, I mean, they were so close to bankruptcy so many times. Like,
Mm-hmm. Good point.
like bankruptcy's a little different than
Good point.
a company loses its visionary leader, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still profitable business that can continue. That's a little different. You know, it would be awful for my investment, but even then, from my investment perspective, yeah, back in 2018, those early years, I mean, I wasn't as early as you, but like 17, 18, even 19, those weren't exactly givens. you
Yes.
know, right now it's like, yeah, it's pretty much a given. EVs are going to proliferate. We get good margins. I think FSD will eventually get there with or without Elon. I think it'll
Okay.
eventually get there. Will it be 2030, 2035? I don't know. It wouldn't be something that I'd be as happy being a, more or less all-in investor in Tesla.
Oh,
It
good question. Yeah, who here is going to continue to stay invested in Tesla if Elon did leave somehow, no matter if it's the shareholder vote or him just leaving for he was abducted by aliens. Who's going to stay invested in Tesla?
I would keep the shares I have,
Okay.
but I wouldn't be adding anymore.
If it took a huge dive, I would add. I would find some way to add, because I still have confidence in the company's roadmap as it exists today. But the reality is, I just do not see a scenario where he outright leaves. Maybe, yeah, I think his vision for the company is too strong and too integral to what it is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I would stay invested. Absolutely,
Yeah.
still stay invested regardless. But
And
But would
if
you
the
add?
voters overwhelmingly want him to not be paid and want him to leave, then those people in theory would buy more shares. I don't know. I'm trying to look over the horizon is not my strong suit. I can see that there's smoke, but I can't see how big the fire is.
yeah, I guess my point is that I still believe that there will be a jump in the stock significant because of the switch to Robotaxi. I think that Robotaxi is going to happen, just like Elon himself has said, regardless if he's abducted by aliens. And that to me is the big one. Now, future, unfortunately, my enthusiasm for what can the bot do is tampered significantly. I would invest, and I have been investing in other humanoid bot companies as well. And I would probably spend more time there than here because, yeah, the future, like you said, Nick, you articulated that so well. So much of what Tesla has done is because of this, revolutionary leader that we have, this incredible mind that is driving and then executing for the company. So
Yeah, I mean, again, I go vote, but I do think that it'll get passed overwhelmingly. I just there are just two things I can't get out of my mind when it comes to his
mhm.
compensation plan. It's one, you really have to be ready to lose value in your investment
Yeah.
by voting against it. And again, there's some people willing to do that, and I think a lot of them are willing to do it because they know that's probably going to get passed, and so they're kind of playing with a little fire there. But also, I would say the majority of people who are upset with Elon or don't like what he's doing are probably out of the stock by now, right?
Yeah.
Even someone like Ross, even Gary
Yep.
Black, who's for it, they have like
Yes.
no shares anymore.
Yep.
So who's how many are really left? Okay, institutional investor, sure. Well, guess what? They're so much smaller than what they were back when they got approved. And we are so much larger and we're louder and we're stronger together. So I'm in the camp of us. I'm in the camp of us. And again, go vote. Hope's not a strategy, but I think that we will be fine on that front.
Wow, Nick, fantastic point. Agreed. Like the way you position that. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Join us every Wednesday. This is a co-stream in all of our channels. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers.